Welcome to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it's Your Impact Attack. This belongs to you, and we're just the curators. Who are we? Who are you? This is the VBC we're talking about, the collective, the VBC. So that means that I must be the V, Jamie Williams. What does that have to do with a V? Because they call me the vet sometimes. And then you get to the B, and that's a Brandon. And Brandon, I am tagging you from the internet. And you are now in. That was hot. Brandon, what is going on?
Not a whole lot, man. This is our first Impact without Scott Demore, so definitely some differences in this one that I noticed that we'll talk about when we get there.
We will sure talk about that when we get there, and we will sure get there because, not a hell of a lot of news this week, but if there is, I'm sure we can be reminded by the C in the VBC, and that C is the chat. And we've got a couple people in the chat, which also starts with a C. Couple starts with a C. But who do we have with us right now? As we will be joined by several other esteemed guests, I'm sure.
Let's see who we got with us tonight. We got Lab Rat, we got Media M5, Lisbeth, what's up? Retro Rocket Reviewed, G3333 Ball, Pierce Austin, good day, mate. How are y'all doing? Hope you're having a great night. Whoop, whoop.
That's right. All right. So we got a nice crew. That's a nice foundation to build upon. You make everybody else that files in feel nice at home. And Piers is definitely not an AI. He's 100% real. He's the realest I've ever met. So, I guess, like I said, we could start off with the news if only anything had happened. Oh, wait. Well, I guess one thing kind of happened. Sting had a last match, if you can call it that. And that was last night. Brandon, did you happen to catch any sort of highlights, clips, social media posts, anything about Sting? Or would you like to say a few words about Sting or anything like that nature?
Man, Sting. Hell of a career. I remember back when he was in TNA, they're talking about retirement, and they kept managing to talk him into going one more year. And then when he finally left, it's like, okay, we're going to finally see him in WWE. And he did, and they dropped the ball on that so bad. So bad. But man, legendary career.
Is that the greatest ball drop ever in wrestling?
It's up,
or one of them?
It's one of them. How do you have Sting and not do Sting and Undertaker?
I don't know. How do you? Oh, I see how you do it. You don't do it. Now, was that, know, I never really, for some reason, when Sting went to the WWE, I didn't really think about the whole Undertaker thing that much, but that seemed to be like a hot topic. And it seemed like to me it was kind of out of nowhere. Did I just completely fly, like I missed that? Like was there always people clamoring for Sting and Undertaker for years and I just never heard about it and never thought about it? Or was this something that people just realized could have been a possibility then?
I remember there was a lot of speculation they wanted to see that in 2012. Or not 2012, 2011.
Mm.
I think that was like when I first started noticing it. Because they were doing that's when they were doing those vignettes that was hyping the Undertaker's return, but this was right after Sting left TNA or his contract expired, so they thought that those were for Sting coming to WWE.
Yeah, I never really thought of I didn't really think of that pairing. It didn't seem like an obvious pairing to me. I don't think I would have wanted to see a match with one of them. I just don't. I guess it would have been fine. I don't know who you would have beat in that situation. And yeah, I know who you should have beat in that scenario, but it didn't end up going that way. And then, of course, Seth Franklin Rollins. We all know about that unfortunate incident. Um, so maybe we would have eventually got a Sting and Undertaker match at some point, and then that just went off the table with that buckle bomb. But I don't know. But yeah, they dropped that ball. Eventually, AEW picked it up, and then he's had a series of, I don't know what you'd call them. They're not exactly matches. I mean, technically, a bell rang at the start of them and rang at the end of them. But a lot of it was just like, some were even cinematic. Uh, but his AEW run ended up pretty well for him, I think. And they gave him a pretty good send off, and thankfully they didn't have him lose to the Young Bucks, so that was a nice plus at the end of the road. Darby Allin's still crazy, but what can you do? I'm sure you saw that absolute, but everybody else was just, I'm just like, well, that's Darby Allin. That's what he does. I'm almost like proud of him. Like, good one, Darby. You haven't done that one yet. You haven't fell through a pane of glass yet. Now you finally did. Good job. Cry me a river. So yeah. And then weirdly during the, I guess they ran out of time, for whatever traditional pay-per-view providers they might still be on. But even the Bleacher Report feed just cuts off, even though they could have, it's not like they have live television services. They could have kept it on if they wanted to, but they cut off Sting's, like, the last few minutes of Sting's, speech and stuff. And of course, Tony Khan got called to the ring, and Tony Schiavone, and probably maybe some other Tonys. I don't know. I only saw a clip, but I'm sure that Sting got whatever he wanted to do. I'm sure that he did it. I don't think anybody made him do anything. So he went out on his terms, I'm sure, and I guess everybody should be happy about it. I saw a lot of, like, I saw even a kid in the audience that had, like, the Sting face paint and a t-shirt and stuff, and I was looking at the kid was crying, and, like, the kid, I was like, well, this kid couldn't have even been born when Sting had his WWE run. So this was a new Sting fan that was made during his AEW time, So
That's
like,
pretty cool.
Even all these years later, the icon is still, still inspiring people, and hopefully, he may inspire another generation of people. There was a guy at OVW when I was there that went by Fang that was clearly Sting inspired. Like, he was basically, that was his whole thing. Like, his face paint, his gear, everything was very inspired by Sting, and he said as much. And he had a lot of passion for wrestling, and he was good at it. Only problem was that, even by today's wrestling standards, Fang was a really small guy, so he wasn't gonna, he probably was not gonna make it to big stage, but he was always fun to work with, and the favorite match I ever had involved him. So, even though he never got to be a big wrestling star, I'm glad that I got to know that guy, meet that guy, work with that guy, and call him a friend. But so that's really what it's kind of all about. You never know, who is going to be the inspiration for who comes out today, right? like best wrestlers ever. Ultimate Warrior was his favorite wrestler. Um, Serena D, widely regarded as one of, if not the best female wrestlers ever. Um, China, huge inspiration for Serena. So you never know, even though those are totally different than how those people ended up, being in their own careers, but it was the inspiration. So I think that's the true magic of pro wrestling. If I can, have an inspirational quote of my own, is that you just never know where the next superstar will come from. It may be from uh, an unlikely star. Like, so we'll see who who's the person that perhaps seeing Sting in AEW.
We shall see.
We shall see. Any other interesting events or topics or anything that have happened in the past? I mean, we did we talk about? We talked about Ole Anderson. We didn't talk about Virgil. I talked about Mike Jones on Next Level Review. But if you had anything that you wanted, any words or anything that you wanted to say, please, share if you want.
I thought like one of the better angles they did like in the late 80s, early 90s was the thing with him and Ted DiBiase. Because like when he finally turned on Ted, he got a huge reaction. The fans were behind him. And I kind of felt he could have been a bigger star after that, because I thought there was definitely something there after that. But then, he went on to, I guess he understood, what am I trying to say? How he kind of became almost like a punching bag almost for like, making fun of other promoters. But I guess he kind of saw it as, hey, it's a job I'm working, making money. Who cares? And he made a career off of it and did a great job.
You definitely could have got something out of it. Yeah, you could have got something out of it, but I mean, he didn't do anything wrong for his part. I don't remember any Vincent matches from WCW. I just remember him just being there, So if
there was a little bit of entertainment there when they did the when the Black or the Wolfpack and the Hollywood reunited, and then the Wolfpack guys were screwing with the B team, like playing them against each other.
Don't remember. But yeah, I remember after the the initial Virgil run, I missed all the Soul Train stuff. Like, that was regional. I didn't see that. I didn't see Memphis wrestling. I didn't see any of that stuff. So he just showed up as a bodyguard for the $1 Million Man, who also just showed up one day. Like, when I was a kid watching WWF, it was just one day there was no $1 Million Man. Next day there was a $1 Million Man, and he had a bodyguard named Virgil. So I didn't question it. But after that, to get a strong win for some up and coming heel, where he was wearing like the candy striped tights, like the peppermint looking striped tights. And I remember just like I want to say it was like Survivor Series 92. He had a pay-per-view match with Yokozuna, if I'm right. It was like kind of early in Yokozuna's run. And I remember he had that match, because that year's Survivor Series was a very weird, just like normal pay-per-view. No, not really. I think there was one traditional Survivor Series, Shawn was the Intercontinental Champion and Brett was the World Champion or something like that. And at the end of it, there was like snow and Brett put on a Santa Claus hat and some shit like that. It's weird. It's a weird Survivor Series 1992, but it had a lot of cool. It had like a lot of, I guess, cool matches for the time, or like with good workers. View debut of Reza Ramon. I remember. I probably got cut out there, but I remember. Yeah, there was like a singles match with Virgil, and Yokozuna sat on him, and then he cut a promo like warning people about Yokozuna after the match, like all the up and like all the top WWF stars, that kind of thing, really putting Yokozuna over. And then we know the run that he went on to have. So that's like the only non-$1 Million Man bodyguard, non-NWO guy standing around role I remember so much for Virgil. I don't, that's pretty much it for me. But
And of course, the Lonely Virgil memes, which he smartly took full advantage of.
yeah, I think am I wrong, or did he have like handlers kind of like the Iron Sheik that did like those, ran like the social media accounts and did that stuff?
It's possible. I can't say for sure.
I thought I heard about that. But anyway, but yeah, so it was very sad the past few years. It was too bad. And as Retro Rocket is saying, also Paul Vachon also passed away recently. That was a few days ago. So yeah, less us. I guess in the mainstream, maybe the lesser known of the Vachon brothers between Maurice, but still, like, they were a big deal tag team, in the. Well, I guess it would be more like, that was more like Canadian wrestling, right? So I'm sure Retro Rock.
Yeah, you cut out there.
What was I saying? I don't know.
Something about the Vachon brothers tag team.
Oh, I was just saying how Retro Rocket Review, being from Canada, and he could probably put up one of his non sequitur biography little blurbs or whatever to educate us all on that, if he wants. And he does it for every other thing, so I would expect to see like a little mini bio for these guys. So, but yes, and in other news, yes, my internet is fucking up again. So, maybe we shouldn't dally. Maybe we should just move ahead as best we can. What do you think?
Let's get to it. Impact Attack. Whoop whoop.
All right, TNA. Well, they start out with a memorial for Ole and Mike Jones, and then we get our ketchup packet, and then we start off with Speedball versus Burt. I thought, I didn't care about the match, but I thought it was pretty good, I guess, like for the kind of modern match that these guys do these days. I like the little spot where he went for the kick and Burt kicks his leg out, so he ends up falling into a splits position. Like, I thought that was a nice looking spot. Eventually he, does some reversing stuff and rolling around into a KIA, wins the match. Mike Bailey not doing so good in the TNA era. He was on a roll in the Impact era, not so much the TNA era. And then Burt and his new friends, his new soldiers, Burt cuts a promo on Dolph. He says he's a leech. He said he's not here for work and all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden, Dolph shows up on the screen, and he says the reason he's not there is because he's in Japan and he just won the global championship. So he challenges, he challenges Burt at Sacrifice, and then in the arena they play Dolph Ziggler's music. So, I always love that. I always love that nice touch when it's the production that has to basically play off the wrestlers in the ring, like hit the wrap it up box on Macklin and the Rascals with like we're playing the Nick Nemeth Wanted Man theme. You gotta get out. Like, is that how it works? One of the funniest things. Go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead.
You better wrap them camos up, B.
Yeah, right. What the hell? It's like when the funniest thing it's so corny on WWE when they do this, and they've done it in the past, but now they're doing it a lot more where like they'll start playing somebody's music. Like let's say they'll play like, I don't know who, Austin Theory. Like they'll play Austin Theory's music, and then let's say Randy Orton hits an RKO on Austin Theory, and they'll just cut off Austin Theory's music on the RKO. Like, oh, we can't hear your music anymore. You just got RKO'd. And then they start playing Randy Orton's music. And it's just like whoever's standing gets their music played, no matter what. Like who would really realistically do that? Where you're just like, oh, stop his music. I know he won the match, but something happened afterwards. Stop his music. Fuck that. He got RKO'd. Play someone else's music. It's just so silly to me. I don't know if anybody else even thinks about that kind of shit when they're watching it, but for me, I just think it's hilarious, and I also think it's rotten. But yeah. So any thoughts on this match, segment, promo, Dolph video, his little championship, anything?
For a modern match, modern style, yes, this was decent, but like nothing in this match, man. Anything like he did all this heat on the leg, and Bailey just no sold it the entire time. Like he occasionally just go to grab at it.
That's the Seth Rollins school of selling, yes.
However, I'm digging this whole thing with Rascals kind of like falling in line and doing the military thing.
Fall in line.
And it shows like unity between the group, and actually like they're coming together now.
Yeah, they're wearing camo, and they're wearing his front toward enemy merch t-shirt. So
I'm waiting for the vignettes of them taking him up to the club, to the treehouse.
Well, we'll see. Well, I know a certain someone who has punching up impacts that may be able to sort of make that happen if they don't.
Well, I'll slide it in there somewhere if they don't.
All right, so we get a clip of Eric Young and the Kazarian situation from No Surrender. And then we have outside, we have security keeping Frankie Kazarian from entering the building. And Gia breaks through security with her microphone to tell Kaz that as per Santino's directive, he is suspended. And Kazarian argues sort of, but that he's just like, since we're sending messages, you ask him if this is really the right thing to do. And then he leaves. So, and then Gia was scared because, Kazarian punches people and beats them up. So,
at least they followed up on that from the pay-per-view.
Yeah, well, it's nice. It's something. Speaking of something, we get Laredo Kid versus Jake something. Now, I'll be honest, more so this one, like the first match with Speedball and Macklin, I was watching it, but like I just didn't care. I was watching like, yep, pretty good. Thumbs up, 6.5 out of 10, whatever. I don't, just not caring. This, I was multitasking on this. I don't care. But I looked up enough to see a fucking Batista bomb on the floor to Laredo Kid for no reason. Like, no reason. Jake Something's not a heel, per se. Laredo Kid's not a heel. He didn't do anything wrong either. He just got powerbombed on the fucking floor. Was it Laredo Kid? Didn't he almost die from some sort of like internal organ issues, something a few years ago? Like, why would you do this? Why would forget about him agreeing to it? Why would you want to do this to a person in a no angle cold match? Fucking babyface X Division showcase, as they called it. Like, you're just gonna slam this dude's guts on the concrete when he had a history of almost dying.
There's no thought process in the business anymore. Absolutely none. I mean, we saw the other night with Darby Allin falling off into that pane of glass.
No, man. Darby Allin fell off a ladder into a pane of glass in the main event of a pay-per-view that was Sting's last match. We don't want to do it, but him, that's who does it, and that's where he does it. You're not going to get a bigger moment for Darby Allin than that. I don't think Darby Allin's going to have a WrestleMania moment. If he wants to dive off through a pane of glass, then bless his heart. But fucking a random Impact, fucking two baby faces powerbomb on the concrete to a guy that has had intestinal issues and almost died.
Okay, bad comparison.
Yeah. I know it's a recent comparison. That's why you made it. I get that. I do get that. But yeah, just but actually to sort of defend your point, everything else on Revolution, the entire pay-per-view, was a bunch of nonsense guys doing stuff. No thought to it, no psychology, just whatever, you know. You had a main event tag match, but you also had a tag match on the other card that was trying to do stuff, just a bunch of sloppy stuff for no reason. Yeah. Well, anyway, I did hear some boos for Jake Something after when he hit his little void slam or whatever it's called, and then he, like, as everybody could see what was happening, I did hear some boos. Did you notice that? Like, people didn't seem they liked it.
A little bit, because he was kind of being a dick during that match.
Right. I wonder if he sort of burned the people, like, inadvertently with that move. Well, I don't know. Well, did you have anything else to add to this particular match?
Nope, just like you said, why would you go to the outside and do that for absolutely no reason?
Wasn't even the finish.
Not yet, that too, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So, well, I'd like to let everybody know that Dark Game is on demand now. If you want to watch that movie, it's available. I mean, TNA wanted me to know it, so I want you guys to know it. Next, Angels is late to the sound check. His own show with Khan. Khan wants to know why he's late. He tells him not to worry about it. You know, they start doing whatever, where Angels, I guess, is doing this thing where he has no self-awareness and he just buries the person while being nice to them. So I guess that'll be the gimmick for the show, no matter who. At first I thought he might have been doing it to Josh Alexander, but Khan is a heel, and I guess he figures, well, we were in the design or something, right? So we're buddies, and
yeah, he legit thinks they're still boys.
Yeah. And yeah. Well, anyway, Khan's not on the same page. None of this really matters until Timeless PCO sort of just wanders into the set area. It doesn't seem to have a purpose of being there, but everything is in black and white. And they, him and Khan square off, and they do the Rocky 3 ending where they go punch each other and the lights go out, and that's it. That's the end of the thing.
Riveting.
Fuck. What do you have to say about this?
It's obvious that Angels has his character. He's doing it well. Well enough, at least. I wish they get a little bit more creative with what they're doing with the show. I mean, I like how they're making it look like it's like low budget, low rent, and he's making a huge deal out of it. But other than that, I think it's doing pretty well.
Well, I mean, it's got the budget at least to change the color timing live and to go off the air at the moment of a punch.
Although I'm not digging this whole baddest man in TNA thing. You can't put PCO away. Then again, nobody's gonna be able to.
Not for long, anyway.
I mean, let's see. What's happened to him. He's been set on fire, run over, battery acid poured down his throat. I'm pretty sure he was buried alive.
Buried alive, yep. Desert, yep. Probably some other stuff we're forgetting.
They should just go full bore, like ridiculous with it. And as he's feuding with Khan, he shows up in a Star Trek uniform while yelling Khan.
Yeah, at this point, you know, is it really that crazy? Yeah, I don't know. Well, there's another guy that knows Khan pretty well. It's Diener, but he's got a new tag team partner. It's AJ Francis. And they're going to take on the team of Rich Swann and Joe Hendry. And then Hendry does his normal promo, right? And he's got his he mentions Steve. He mentions a flop. He says he tells no one there should chant AJ sucks. And then the whole time he's saying all this, Rich Swann is sort of yes-anding it with his pantomiming and going around the ring and really selling all this, even though Joe Hendry didn't really incorporate him at all in any way. So that was kind of a missed opportunity. I would like to have him at least have a little shout out for his tag team partner, but nothing. He just acted like he wasn't there, kind of. But that's a very, very small thing.
I think that might play into what happens after the match.
Okay. Well, we'll get there because I don't really even remember. I don't think I made a note. I'll say this about the match. So when AJ and Hendry finally touched, since the big AJ Francis debut or whatever, it's not even that big a deal in the match. Like they kind of make a big deal to start out that they're not doing it, but then when it actually happens, it's just like, oh yeah, it's just time for this now. They don't make a big deal out of it. The whole match should have been based around it. The whole match should have been based around these two getting at it and getting physical, but it was just as soon as, you know, Joe Hendry goes to knock AJ off the apron, and then he makes fun of him, and then while he's doing that, Diener just gloms him from behind, and then they start the heat, and then he tags AJ Francis in, and they just get some normal heat. It's like not even that big of a deal. So
right, it should have been Swann taking the heat. Hendry gets the hot tag, and that's when he starts bumping Francis around.
Right. And they didn't do that. AJ Francis was able to take his signature flop move where he falls over the top rope, but he turned it into a move where he does a running knee first, and then he hits him with a running knee, and then he flops over the top rope and lands on his feet. And he's like, who sucks? You know? So
I think I like it.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, nothing he did was particularly bad in this match. So, you know, considering I've buried him pretty badly, worse than PCO in the desert on previous shows, you know, his rap songs are terrible, and he's a terrible rapper, and his, you know, not good in the ring, and his acting is bad and everything like that. But here in this match, he was fine. So, I mean, all things considered, no one's going to mistake him for, you know, anybody great, but he didn't, you know, he did fine. His timing was fine. But, you know, eventually Joe Hendry hits a standing O on Diener for the win. And then I guess, you know, you were talking about how the Rich Swann thing him being ignored by Joe Hendry could play into the ending of this. So, kind of elaborate on that, and then whatever else you saw in this match or any other notes you had.
Yeah, so it seemed like during the post-match celebration that anytime like Swann tried to get any, camera time or spotlights, Hendry would step in front of him, and then you could see Swann starting to get a little bit visibly frustrated.
Okay, all right. Interesting. Okay. I must have not noticed that. Good catch. Well, then if that's what they want to do, if they're eventually, it seems like they want to just eventually put Rich Swann with AJ Francis. It seems like that's what they want to do. Like he's going to convince, Swann to go to the dark side. So,
right, like that's basically that could be his in right there. Like he could go like the next week and go to Swann and say, "Hey," and point that out to him.
Yeah. So this is the kind of subtle storytelling we get. Meanwhile, everything else is just bonk over the head. All right, what's next here? Anything else on that before we move on?
No, I thought it was a pretty decent match and the best match on the show at this point.
Certainly was. Nobody power bombed on the outside. Decay gets a vignette. It's the usual Decay stuff. I was thinking that as I was watching this, I would think, this would be a lot more effective if it were more unique. But I feel like a lot of wrestlers do these types of promos where it looks like a horror movie, with all the gimmick, editing techniques and stuff that they do. I feel like there's regular wrestlers that do that kind of shit that don't even have the supernatural gimmick to them. I feel like Eric Young would make a thing like this. I feel like on Revolution, Pac did a video kind of like this. Not exactly like this, but he did something that was like clearly, there's effects to it. It's not, but he's just some wrestler. So it's like everybody does this. So Decay doesn't seem unique in this space. It's not their fault that everybody else is doing it, but at least, for TNA, maybe if they just make sure that everybody else stays away from this kind of presentation, other than Crazy Steve, who was associated with them, I could see that being fine. But if you're just a regular old wrestler and you don't have any sort of supernatural trappings, maybe just don't try to do one of these stylized vignettes where you look like you're from a horror movie. It's my 2 cents on it. What do you think?
I'm 100% agree with that.
Well, would you agree that if we're signing Alexander Hammerstone, that we do better than just be like, hey, we signed him, here's a graphic?
We can do a little bit better than that.
Yeah, so this was Josh with Gia and music underneath, interrupted by the Dango crew, who apparently are promoting a wrestling school of some sort, and especially promoting the avenues with which you can pay them for the wrestling school, as much as anything else. So that was funny. I'll let you comment on that stuff.
And it's website's down there scrolling at the bottom.
Yeah, which wasn't right. Did I miss that on my feed? Okay,
No, it wasn't.
Definitely no website scrolling on the bottom. So before this happened, Josh was sort of getting at there's gonna be like a rematch between him and Hammerstone, right? So if you remember,
they confirmed it for Sacrifice,
right? So if you remember what I said of my booking when you bring Hammerstone in, he should have just beat Josh Alexander rather handily, I thought. I thought that would have been much better for Josh Alexander going forward. And at the time, I said, if you do end up bringing in Hammerstone, he's already got like, he's got like the built-in, shine, because it's like, well, yeah, not that's why we signed him. He beat Josh Alexander. We want this guy in our company. If Josh Alexander just beats Hammerstone, it's like, what do we want you for? Like it doesn't, the whole deal, especially, but that plays into what they did with Simon Gotch. Simon Gotch isn't happy that Josh Alexander got signed by TNA because Josh Alexander beat Simon Gotch at some indie show. So it plays even more into the Alexander Hammerstone story now, that he's like, if he would have beat Josh Alexander, all this stuff sort of like ties in. And this is the sort of intrigue that I like in professional wrestling. I like the sort of like it's concentrating on the sport aspect of it, and then the human aspect of the sport aspect. The jealousy, the professional jealousy, the business decisions, that overall thing. It's all based around the competition. It's not like, oh, I have supernatural powers, or I'm going to stab you in the head with a fork or whatever, or, oh, I'm going to wander into a set and turn the color off. It's like, this is something that you can take a real thing and you could turn it into a work. You give this guy a job, it makes more sense that you sign him for beating one of your incumbent wrestlers than it does that she's like, well, good showing, you get a contract. And then it ties into all the storylines that you were going to do anyway. Now the rematch would have meant something. What the hell does Josh Alexander have to prove now? He already beat this guy. Why are they going to have a rematch? What's the point? See? So with my version, it all would have made more sense. But whatever. Who cares about my version? Did you have anything else to add about this thing and the Dango guys and the school and other stuff?
Now they continue to be funny. I just wonder what how they get out of this thing with Dango without neutering Prudius.
All right, now Prudius is in the Virgil role, so that's a good tribute.
I mean, the only thing I could think of is his Hammerstone shows up and lays out Alexander before him and Prudius can touch. So I would keep those two as far away from each other as possible.
Well, we'll see what they do, but I don't really have much faith in it. I think it's going to be as generic and uncreative as possible. That's just a feeling I have based on history. The Good Hands, on the other hand, are here to intro Mustafa Ali for his inauguration as X Division champion, with the lots of decorations, and they've got the podium set up in there and all this stuff. So he comes out and he starts to do like a speech, and then Sabin interrupts, and he comes out and he says some stuff, and they have some words, and basically what ends up happening is, even though Ali technically didn't do anything wrong, Sabin still sucker punched him. And then as the Good Hands obviously would go to to stop Sabin from continuing to beat up Ali, then you have Kushida and Kevin come out, and they get into this, and they kind of kick everybody's ass and run them off. And then they sort of destroy the set, and Chris Sabin's over there having his own, he booked his own match with some of the tinsel that was hung over the ropes. I'm not sure he went over, but it looked like he was having a tough time with it. So yeah, the baby sucker punched the heels. I mean, great. That's fine. It seems like, again, a situation where I'm not sure if they realize. Are they just? Did they just expect everybody to hate Mustafa Ali, and they're just going with that booking anyway? Or did they always know that there would be sort of these like gray areas for both of these guys? Did they just think people would just be behind Chris Sabin 100%? I'm confused.
I think
I'm
that's
yeah.
I think that's exactly what it is. They think there's like, okay, we're gonna try to push Ali as a heel and Sabin as a baby face, and they're just gonna accept it as is, which they're not.
Yeah. But Ali's not like, other than the way you don't like any smug politicians, he's not doing anything overtly heelish. Chris Sabin said if the good hands weren't at ringside or whatever, then you wouldn't have beat me. I forgot. Did the good hands cheat and cost Chris Sabin the championship?
I honestly do not remember. I think the announcers might have mentioned the specific instance they got involved in the match.
I forgot. But it didn't feel like it. It definitely wasn't something where it was like, oh, they jumped up and like grabbed him and then, whatever. Like the finish played out relatively without interference. I that's how I remember it. But if they cheated, he could have just said that. It was the phrasing of it. Like if you didn't have these guys, you wouldn't have beat me. It wasn't like, if it wasn't for them getting up and interfering, that you wouldn't have beat me or anything like that. But either way, Ali wasn't really saying anything that other. I mean, he poked him in the chest a little bit, basically saying how nobody in the building was on his side, which was true. They definitely wanted Ali to win that night. So I don't know. But my point is, he could be, if they think that he's a heel, either he or whoever's booking it, whatever, could be telling him more heelish things to do to make the people not like him. But he's not really doing that. He's sort of playing it neutrally. Like, if you like me, you like me. If you believe in, if in Ali you trust, then in Ali you trust. They're not pushing people one way or the other. But this isn't the first time we've had this problem with the machine guns. Alex Shelley, had been trying to out heel heels in his title run too. So I don't know. Is this just a case of the Motor City Machine Guns being tweeners and just doing whatever they feel like at the time? Or are people trying to go in a direction and failing? Or I don't know. I'm confused at how to look at this.
I have no idea what could be going through their heads either. The way this is being booked and set up makes absolutely no sense. Like, there's no clear cut defined protagonist or antagonist. You just have a dude. It just sounds like Chris Sabin's throwing a hissy fit and getting pissy over losing the title.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, this is essentially how. I mean, I don't want to compare these guys in any shape or form, but it's just something that the first thing that popped in my head was when Brett and Austin were doing their like early 97 sort of feud that was stemming from the end of 96. Austin was blatantly cheating and costing Bret Hart stuff, and Bret Hart was saying it, and the way they portrayed it, they made it seem like Bret Hart was complaining and Steve Austin was a hero, even though Steve Austin was cheating and doing heel things. And eventually the people just enjoyed Austin more, and that's how that whole thing switched. But Austin never stopped being a heel, and Bret was never wrong in any of the stuff that he said. So is this that? Is this just like, well, people just like Ali more, so whatever. Who cares if Chris Sabin has a point? Fuck him. Like, is that it? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. There's plenty of different directions they can go with this, so we'll see where they go.
Well, the next direction we're going to go is the concierge is going to introduce Ash by Elegance for a huge announcement. And then she makes a huge announcement. I don't even know if it's so huge. I shouldn't even tell you guys. I don't know if I'm qualified to tell you what her announcement is. All right, fine. I'll try. She's going to have her second match. And it's going to be on Impact. I guess as of this recording, it'll be coming up this Thursday. So she's gonna have her second match.
Wow, that's some. I gotta check that out. I gotta watch that shit in real time.
That's right, live taped match. Yes.
But yeah, this was one. But this was kind of one thing I noticed that was different that D'Amore never really did very often, if at all. Is this kind of like the end of the Ali ceremony? Like literally just rolled into this one, like she just strolled out, like, okay, keep the show moving.
Yes. Yes, I always prefer if you can do something like that. So I'll agree that was a good thing. I also find it weird that like anybody would have this idea and it would have anything to do with, say, like a Scott D'Amore. Like, did somebody want to do this? And he was like, no. You know, they could have been doing this. I don't know why they wouldn't, but you just didn't see it that much, like you said. So, all right. So look forward to that match. Liz was putting on socks and getting a snack at the same time for this. So she was probably getting a snack all over her socks. But Ali does have a promo. He's angry now. He says that actions have consequences, and he and the entourage storm off. Pretty straightforward. And then we get Tasha Steelz versus Xia Brookside, part 3. It's the trilogy match is finally whatever about the match. This is already the third time we've seen it. But the main point is it's a double count out. They do the double count out where they're fighting and just don't pay attention to the ref counting. And there's a way to do this where it doesn't look like you're just doing this spot. And so you either get it or you don't. Did not get it. It looked like, okay, this is the spot. As soon as I saw them punching each other, I already knew what was coming up. And then the referee always accelerates the count to a much faster pace than they normally would whenever these things happen, and it just looks like a phony spot. So there you go. Double count out. Nothing was resolved. We don't have a number 1 contender. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Oh, good thing Jordan Grace is here. She'll make the decision for us. She says, I'll take you both on. So
she's hardcore.
That's hardcore. This must be Tommy Dreamer's call, because this is very hardcore. He's not the head of creative though, so don't worry too much. Are you in agreement that this shit looks so phony when they just start punching each other? Yeah, not even like brawling around, like they go up the aisle or go off to one of the barricades, or just stand right there next to the referee counting and pretend they didn't hear, and then look confused when she counts to 10 and rings a bell.
Yeah, or fight up to the stage.
Any other notes?
Nah, just
yeah. Bleh. All right, the system walks, and then Rhino cut the promo on Crazy Steve. And then we get our main event. Looks like there's been enough talk. It's time for the main event. It's the System versus ABC and Eric Young. ABC has like a new remix of their their Bullet Club song, and Eric Young is a world-class maniac. He was announced as a world-class maniac, and I think it's on his tights. He may have already been called this, but this is the first time I noticed. What do you think of the world-class maniac?
I think he's been referred to that as before, and for what he's doing right now, I don't think it works like when he was called it before. It did, because I think that was actually back when he first formed Violent by Design. He was being called that.
Hmm.
You broke up again.
I just said the announcers, because the announcers announced him to the ring as a world-class maniac. I don't remember that.
Oh,
They might have been doing it. Not just like the commentary using it as a nickname or him using it as a nickname, but they were like the world-class maniac, Eric.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that is the first time, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, this was a good main event too. It wasn't as good as the last system main event that we had. That match was really good. This match was just, well, we got some problems here. The system was not running on all cylinders in this one. It wasn't all their fault. It does seem to be like an ABC problem, because I know the Grizzly Young Veterans are capable of good tag team matches that satisfy me as a tag team wrestler. And I didn't like their matches with ABC. And then, you know, like I know these guys can do a good 6-man tag because they had an amazing 6-man tag previously, and this one was not as amazing. So the common denominator is ABC. Make of that what you will. But I mean, what did you think of the main event overall?
I thought it was a decent main event. I liked it. It was again, usually a little long, but that's how all of Impact's main events are. Everybody looked good in that. I'm digging that triple combo finisher.
Did you catch what was wrong with it?
It looked like Moose missed his face with the kick.
That may have happened, but that's a nitpick. There was something fundamentally wrong with the whole thing.
None of the moves were finishers?
Nope. That again would be a nitpick or a preference thing. I'm talking about fundamentally, like they missed it. This was a mistake. This was a clear mistake. Well, before I get that, I will start with because we love Moose, and this is the Moose. I will get. You want to talk about a nitpick? This is how far down I have to go if I need to give Moose help and advice. Okay, so in the spot where you hit the legal man when the ref's not looking. So, there's that thing where he takes Austin's legs out on the apron and he takes a face plant. That's a good spot that's a good spot to start the heat for a couple of reasons. One, it's just a good spot. Two, Ace Austin has that signature move where you go to sweep his legs and he does like a handstand, and then he gets out of your way again when you try to knock over his handstand, and then he gives you like the penalty kick, right? That's like one of his signature spots, and he does it later. So by doing this, it like sets that up. It shows you that you took out his legs, and then later on you go to do the same thing and he does his handstand back to the feet, like that. So it's good psychology, good subliminal psychology for setting it. Okay, so that's a good spot. But Moose is not legal and Ace Austin is. And the referee is being distracted. So this spot starts the heat. This is the cutoff spot. Okay, so Moose does it, right? And then Moose does this. He does the thing like, I didn't do anything, right? There's just one problem with that. the ref ain't even looking at him. Not even close. Ref is just busy in the babyface corner with the baby faces and stuff. So Moose is holding his hands up for no one. And he just looks silly doing that. So if he notices, that's fine if the ref goes to look at you immediately. You go, I didn't do it. If the ref does not turn to you, hustle back up to your spot on the apron and just lean on the rope like that. Don't say I'm not guilty when nobody's looking to ask you if you're guilty or not. That's how much of a nitpick I have to do for Moose these days. That's how good Moose is. So anyway, in the match they had a good they did a good false tag. And then right after the false tag, Moose drags Austin back and he stomps on him and they beat him up in the corner, which is like what I've been saying, right? Like I've been talking about that. If you're gonna do that, you got to cheat. So they did that. That was good. But and the babyface did a good job of drawing the ref because they kept trying to get in while this beatdown was going on. And the longer they got on, the longer he kept getting beat up. So that's good. And then they stopped at the right time. But then Myers put a face lock on, and that's bad. It's like, okay, you slowed it down, you ruined it. And then the hot tag was not hot. It was warm. It was just a bleh. Like after all that work you did up to this point, hot tag was not hot. All you got to do to just get out of this, the moment you do the false tag and you bring Austin back and beat the shit out of him, all you do is, if you want Eddie to be in there for this comeback, you bring him to the corner, you tag Eddie Edwards, Eddie comes in, you hold him up, Eddie holds him up, and then Brian Myers goes to hit the ropes and go for the roster cut. Eddie lets him go, like, okay, roster cut him. And then Austin ducks the roster cut and dives over and tags. If you do a false tag where the people think that the babyface is tagged for the hot tag and the ref didn't see it, and then he puts the babyface back out, you have to go home the next thing you do, because the people are so mad at that point, assuming that they care. That's the highest point it's going to be in the heat. You can't get higher than that, so you have to get ready for the hot tag after that. You can't just lay in a face lock and get everybody bored. So it's very simple. All you got to do is miss something, let them duck and tag immediately. Then you're caught off guard. Oh, shit. Hot tag comes in. Boom, boom, boom. Cleans house. Instead, what they did, typical, Ace Austin gives everybody a bump. Like after you just got beat up. Bump everybody, and then lazy tag to Eddie. So, whatever. That's it. The ref allowed a lot of double teaming on Moose by ABC. And they even hit the 1-2 sweet and went for the pin, which was broken up. But there's a problem with that. It's the same problem as, like you said, the triple finisher with the running boot into a backpack stunner into a top rope elbow on Chris Bay. Myers pinned him for the 1-2-3. So your winner's the system. The fundamental problem is, I'm pretty sure Fat Eddie was the legal man. At one point, after Eddie gets the heels side of the hot tag, he comes in to take the bumps. And then later on, at some point, Moose just comes into the ring and starts doing stuff. No tag. He just comes in. That's fine. You're a heel. You could just come in, no tag or whatever, when we're doing the spot at the end of the match where everybody gets their shit in. Sure, why not? But they tried to pin Moose, and the ref counted it. So it took them breaking it up, right? Moose wasn't legal. And then Myers comes off the top rope with that elbow after the whole thing. Moose never really got out of the ring at any point after that. He stayed in the whole time. And that's what led to the big boot, backpack stunner, top rope elbow from Myers, 1-2-3, except Myers wasn't legal, so they completely lost that. But hey, who cares? It's just a random Impact main event. Nobody's watching. Do whatever you want. Who cares about who the legal man was? Perhaps they could turn this into an angle. They could just say, not like a huge angle or anything. They could just say like, yeah, Eddie was the legal man, so you shouldn't have won that match. But whatever. You know, the baby faces have an out. I don't really think they thought about that. I think they just fucked up. But that's your, hey, the system goes out strong on the episode, so I'm happy. So yeah, there's your episode. Yay.
All right, so let's get it punched up.
Yeah, let's punch it up. And now, if my internet breaks up, it doesn't matter because I can still hear Brandon the whole time. I won't be saying anything.
All right, so we started off with our recap catch-up packet and go to intro, pyro, and ballyhoo, and then cut to the announce table where they run down the card for the night and discuss events that happened last week as well as No Surrender. You open with an in-ring and the system music and entrance, Edwards and Myers promos on how they're coming for ABC and bringing the tag belts to the system. Moose promo on how he beat Shelley. Now he's focused on EY and how EY is the heart and soul of TNA, and he'll take him out and replace the hole with the system. Yeah. ABC out to the stage. ABC promo about how they heard they were a target and they decided to come out in the open instead of getting jumped. Because, that's kind of how they do things. They jump them. So it's like, here we are instead. Mm-hmm. And then you get a little brief back and forth on the mic between the two groups before it looks like it's about to get physical. Lights out. Eric Young video plays where he tries to get in Moose's head. Lights on and ABC are gone. Mm-hmm. Then we go to our first commercial break. We come backstage to the system's locker room. Moose says they're going to find Eric Young and take him out before the night's over. Santino enters and says that he doesn't have to wait because the main event is a 6-man tag before leaving. Moose says screw Santino and wants Myers and Edwards to find and take out Eric Young before the main event. Go to our first match, Mike Bailey versus Steve Macklin. Mike Bailey music and entrance with Tread 7. Steve Macklin music and entrance with Rascals. Same match but shorter and actually sell the damn leg. Macklin post-match promo, Nick Nemeth video plays. Then we go to the Decay vignette, same one that we saw on the show. Then we go to the production truck with Myers and Edwards, and they're asking if Eric Young was there. Before they get it, we get an answer. The power goes out. And then we go to our second commercial break. Flows right into it. Come back from commercial, go to the announce table. They mentioned they managed to get the power back during the commercial break. Then they throw to the Kazarian video. And we see the Kazarian video that we saw on the show where he finds out he's suspended. Match 2, Laredo Kid versus Jake Something. Laredo Kid music and entrance, Jake Something music and entrance. Highlight Laredo Kid's, and here's how we're going to do the match. We're going to highlight Laredo Kid's speed and agility, have him on offense for just very briefly. Jake Something catches him with a big move, dominates, and they keep it in the ring. And then we end up keeping the same finish that we have on the show. Then we go backstage with Shaw, Giselle Shaw, and then Shaw seen exiting Gail Kim's office. Gia asks what Shaw was doing in there. Shaw says it's no one's business. Then we go to the sound check, same one that we see on the show. And during that, we hype the Ali in-ring for after the commercial break. Commercial break number 3. Then we come in with the in-ring with Ali ceremony that goes the same way it does on the show. And also we still have the Ash by Elegance promo that happens right after that. And then at the end, the announcers say that Myers and Edwards are attacking someone. We cut to the back. Myers and Edwards are beating up somebody who looks like Eric Young but isn't, and they've realized their mistake and leave. Then we go backstage to Alexander and Josh Alex. Then we go to Josh Alexander.
I told you there's too many bald white guys in wrestling, man. You're not listening.
Then you go to Josh Alexander and Gia. It's the same thing that we get on the show with Dango, Bravo, and Prudius and their whole thing. And then match number 3, tag team match, Rich Swann and Joe Hendry versus Diener and AJ Francis. Diener music and entrance, AJ Francis music and entrance, Swann music and entrance, Hendry music and entrance. Everything goes like it does on the show. Announcers say that Myers and Edwards got a tip on where Eric Young is at. They enter, and we cut to the backstage where they enter an empty room and the door gets closed. They enter a room and close the door behind them, and they find out the room is empty. ABC have their own cameraman, and they drive a forklift to block the door. And then we go to our fourth commercial break. Backstage, we see Myers and Edwards are still in the room, and they bang on the door and yell. And they talk about how Moose is going to be pissed they didn't take out Eric Young. Go to the pre-tape promo that we saw with Rhino. And then we go to a vignette with Crazy Steve where he responds to Rhino's promo. Match 4 is Zaya Brookside versus Tasha Steelz. Tasha Steelz music and entrance, Zaya Brookside music and entrance. We get the same match that we got on the show, except we put the finish together better. Go backstage to Ali where he cuts the same promo that he did on the show. And then you go to an in-ring stage, or I just put in-ring / stage because it doesn't really leave the stage. Jody threatened Danny Luna. Their music and entrance like they're coming out for a match, but until MK Ultra jumped them from behind and laid them out with chains. Backstage, you go to the system. Moose and Alicia find Edwards and Myers, and Moose moves the forklift. I'll let you just picture how he decides to do that. Moose gives Edwards and Myers a hard time about not taking out Eric Young and getting trapped. And then Moose says it's time for them to head to the ring for the main event. And then we go to our fifth and final commercial break. Come back with the New Japan hype video. Go to the announce table. Run down the card for Sacrifice. Run down the card for next week's show. Match number 5, our main event. Eric Young and ABC versus the System. ABC music and entrance. Eric Young music and entrance. The System music and entrance. Immediately turns into a brawl before the match even starts. And then they get into the ring. Match starts. And the finish is the heels do a dirty cutoff. Eric grabs a remote from the announce table and presses a button to shut the lights off. Lights are back on, and ABC take out Myers and Edwards, and Eric Young pins Moose with a pile driver.
Oh, I hate it.
Well, the idea behind here, what I was thinking is the baby faces get a shine here, and then next week is when the System gets their revenge and gets their heat back, heading into the pay-per-view.
Moose must never be pinned. He must never even be made to look weak. As a matter of fact, when you said I'll let you picture how he moves that forklift, I pictured him lifting it over his head and tossing it away like it was, a picnic table. So yes, strong opposition to that, but other than that, I'll go with it. There's a lot of it's funny, like even when
yeah, you're right, that actually is a terrible idea, like having Moose get pinned. Yeah, that's actually bad. Should not be doing that.
Right. One of the things about a heel champion, right? A lot of the heat comes from them it's not so much you have to get the feeling like they're shirking responsibilities or like escaping situations. Like so close. Like, Batman almost had the Joker. He had his jacket in his hands and the Joker slipped out. Like that's some of the heat, for the Joker, it's also, being a psychopathic murderer, but also it's that, he got away. And it's the same thing with the Roman Reigns. It's just like the heat he's bragging about this long historic championship reign and he's never done anything on his own this whole time. He's always had his family helping him and all this other shit. And he's getting by on the skin of his teeth. If Roman Reigns just gets pinned in a tag team match, which happened once in 4 years, but for a storyline reason, not saying it was the greatest idea or that they made the most out of it, but they turned that into a main event match afterwards. That's one time, but that was like that match in and of itself was a built up main event of a pay-per-view. So, for that reason, it's always better to, whenever you're getting heat on a heel, it's always better to go with every avenue you can. Make them be vicious and a coward if you can do it. Whatever it is, slippery, always escaping, always politicking, anything but to do your job. Like your job is to be a wrestling champion and defend your championship. Anything to get out of that. That's heat. That means every guy that goes to work at his 9-to-5 job and sees somebody else slacking off and getting paid the same while you're working hard, they subconsciously relate it to that, So, and when you look like fucking Moose looks, when you look like you're carved out of granite, and you still don't want to be an honorable champion, when you look like you could kill anybody, and you're not doing it, and you're afraid of a guy like Eric Young, or you're just trying to avoid a guy like Eric Young who couldn't even be on this version of your Impact, couldn't even be different enough to not get beat up by mistake by somebody else. Oh, that's heat. That's heat for Moose. Why won't you face this short, white, bald man? So that's just how I look at it. But yeah, that's the fun part of being a heel, thinking of all the creative ways that you can piss people off. And then when you finally do put somebody over, it's so good. You remember the kid Fang that I was telling you about? All I wanted was to have a match with him and his partner that dressed like Sonic the Hedgehog. And all I wanted was to put those guys over. I wanted to put them over so bad. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And we kept trying to get this match and they wouldn't give it to us. Like, I don't know if they just didn't care or what, or if they had, I don't think they had any better ideas, but I was just like, come on, let's do it. So when we would do promo class, like, we would try to book our own angle and we'd make up stuff that never happened. Like I say, I threw Fang off a building or whatever, and he barely survived or whatever, and he needs to get his revenge in this match or whatever. Like, whatever bullshit we could think of to make this match happen. The only problem was the whole time, like, my team we just lost. But I had a guy, my tag team partner was a guy that was like a Moose. He was like an intimidating physical specimen. And once I realized that basically we're just going to have to job to everybody, I made sure that I was the one that was always doing all the jobs. So my partner never got touched, kind of thing, right? Like, I wanted to save him. If I couldn't save us, I would save him. And I'd take all the L's, right? But it would have meant so much more to be able to put over the person I wanted to put over if we had wins against the people we should have had wins against. You know what I mean? So, like, that's what I really wanted. It's so satisfying. It was still fun to put, it was still fun to put the guys over when the match eventually happened. But it would have been more fun if, like, the outcome had been in any sort of doubt, I guess. But yeah. So anyway, we'll see what the real life Moose has to do. But I do like that there's been more Moose, and that the shows have been ending with Moose standing tall, and as opposed to just not there at all or even mentioned, like it started to be. So this is a better direction. Who knows? Maybe they got rid of Scott D'Amore because they agree with me. Not enough Moose. So, but that brings us to the end of Punching Up Impact. That brings us to the end of regular Impact. That brings us to the end of the Impact Attack. So that means it's time to tell the people where they can find us. So Brandon, where can they find you?
I can be found on Twitter, or as the kids call it this day, the X at Transarchistia. I am also on Twitch at twitch.tv/MissTia the Transarchist. And I am also on Substack at HMG Brandon.
Yes. Thank you very much for joining my late night endeavor. It was late. It wasn't that late for me, but it was late because I had been up for almost 24 hours at that point. So I was surprised to be awake to see the end of Revolution. But Brandon did stop by, so I appreciate that. That was fun. And you can find me at twitch.tv/opinionhaver. It just says you can find me on any social media or any kind of platforms that people have names on. Opinion Haver is me. And if it's not me, you'll definitely know. You can find me every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, live for the Next Level Wrestling Review with Big Ray Hernandez. You can find me every Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, live for The Wreckage with Jimmy T, where we talk about Collision. You can find Rip Rogers live every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, concrete, except when it's not. For her Rip Rogers Live Q&A, and you can ask Rip Rogers a question. Matt Riddle no-showed his appearance last week. Oh, bad form, Mr. Riddle, bad form. So we don't know if he'll be back, but it's one of those things. Card subject to change. But don't let that stop you. They were still doing a show, and they still answered questions, and Rip told stories about Oli and gave some proper context, that I could never give for Ole Anderson. So check out that show last week and check out the show this week. And Stevie Richards, of course, Wrestling Analysis channel. He's been posting pics of his new studio. Everything's looking good. He's got a green screen in there, so he's going to be putting out content for you on that on YouTube and on his fitness channel and his podcast and everything else that Stevie's got going on. So much. So follow Stevie at all of his endeavors. And I think that just about will wrap us up. So for Brandon, I'm the vet, and I don't have a sign-off line.